Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hi and welcome to Stella's Meza. On today's episode, I want to show you how to make a carrot cake. Now, this is a very simple cake that's delicious and moist. That's why I like to call it a slice of heaven carrot cake. Now, to begin, you will need some dry ingredients. In that bowl, I have some all-purpose flour, cinnamon, cardamom, baking powder, and a pinch of salt. And here I have some grated carrots. Now, for all the list of ingredients used in this recipe, please visit my blog. It's www.stellasmeza.blogspot.com. I'll also include a link below the video to take you directly to a recipe. Now, what I just showed you there was one diced apple, and over there I have some golden raisins and some room temperature eggs. All right, now in that bowl I have some cooking oil and some granulated sugar. Now you see this recipe does not use a lot of sugar, but it's still delicious. Now that is some sour cream. If you don't have sour cream in your country, you can use some plain yogurt. Now for the garnishing, we will use some more grated carrots. Now there I have some room temperature cream cheese and a stick of room temperature butter and some brown sugar. That's what we'll use to make our icing. We'll also need either pure rum or some rum extract, which is what I'll be using in this video. Okay, now to begin with, you're going to need some equipment. Over there you will need a whisk, you will need a rubber spatula, and of course our pan. I'm using a Bundt pan. That's a 9-inch Bundt pan that I've already prepared. I put some butter, some nonstick cooking spray in there. Okay, if you don't have that, you can use just a round 9-inch pan. That'll make two of those. This recipe will make two of those. Now, what you want to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then you want to start mixing your batter. Now, in that bowl, I'm mixing our dry ingredients, and I'm just using a whisk to make sure everything's well combined. And once I'm satisfied with that, we're going to start mixing our wet ingredients. Now, in that bowl is some granulated sugar and some cooking oil. And to that, we're going to add our room temperature eggs, all right? Now you want to make sure your eggs are at room temperature, and to attain that, just place them on the counter for 30 minutes before you begin mixing it into your batter. Now in that bowl, I'm adding our sour cream. Okay, and at this point, if you don't have sour cream, you can add just plain yogurt, and this gives your cake that nice, soft texture. Okay, it makes it very moist. All right, once you get that in there, you want to give it a good mix. Make sure everything's well combined until it's nice and creamy. Okay, just like you see in that bowl right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding our dry ingredients to that egg mixture, and I like to do this in 3 parts. All right, and I am not using my electric mixer to mix this today. I'm just going to use my whisk. Right, and you want to be gentle. The secret to a moist cake is do not overmix the ingredients, and also use room temperature eggs and room temperature butter if you're using butter in your cake. Okay, so you just want to give it a good mix and make sure you get the sides of the bowl. That way all the flour is incorporated into the batter, and I'm going to do that 2 more times until all the flour mix is in that egg mixture. And this is what it looks like once it's combined. Now at this point, you're going to start adding our other ingredients. And over there I have the carrots. I just want to put that in there. And then I'm going to use my rubber spatula to gently fold the carrots into that mixture. Now I just want to make sure that all the grated carrots are covered in that batter. And I'm going to be gentle. What I do is I scrape the bottom of the bowl, turn it over, bottom over, just until those carrots are moistened by that batter. Okay, do not overmix once again, or you end up with a very dense, dry cake. All right, then once that's in there, I'm going to add our cubed apples into the mixture. Now some people prefer to use like pineapple bits in their carrot cake, but I prefer to use apples, and the reason is it gives that textural balance, okay, where you bite into something and it's not just all cake. There's a little bit of a textural interest in the cake, so you can do that. Other people add nuts into their cake, For my carrot cake, I do not like to add nuts in it. So I just like the apples, the carrots, and the raisins, which is what I'm adding in next. Okay, then I'm going to fold that in gently as well. Now, please do not panic if you look in that mixing bowl and you see that your batter is thick. That's how it's supposed to be. So you did not ruin your cake. That's how it's supposed to look. Right? So once everything's well mixed and you scrape the sides of the bowl, we're going to transfer this batter into our prepared baking pan. Okay? See how thick that is? That's all okay. The end result will be a very moist cake. Right? So I'm just going to start putting that batter into the pan. And what I'm doing is I'm circulating that pan as I put the batter in there. And that's what I do when I use this pan. It's called a bundt pan. Just to make sure everything gets into that pan evenly and that we don't have some parts of the cake that are raised or some are lower than others. So what I'll do once I put all the batter in this pan is I'll go back with my rubber spatula and just kind of flatten it out, and I'll pay extra attention to that center part of the pan that is raised. You want to make sure that your batter touches that pan, because what will happen if you leave gaps in there is when you're releasing your cake, it will break. Okay, so you want to make sure that batter is touching that center part if you're using a bundt pan. All right, you see me going back in there and smoothing out the batter in the pan. All right. Now, once this is all smooth and to the level that I want it to, I'm going to put this in the oven, in the center rack of the oven, and I'm going to bake it at 350 degrees. Now, remember to click on that link below this video. It'll take you directly to the recipe, or you can visit my blog for this and other recipes. It's www.stellasmezza.blogspot.com. Now, once your cake has baked to the point, like if you insert skewer into the center of it or close to the center, it does not come out wet and sticky, your cake is done. So we are going to let it sit in the pan for 10 minutes before you unmold it. Okay, if you rush to unmold it, your cake will stick to the sides of the pan. So what you'll do is, once the cake is cooked, just take a spatula, go around the edge of the cake and the pan to help it release, and then turn it over onto a cooling rack like you see I've done there. Okay, so we're going to set this aside, and then we're going to start making the icing. All right, now for me, a carrot cake is just not a carrot cake without that cream cheese icing or cream cheese frosting. So in that bowl, I have a room temperature block of cream cheese and 1 stick of butter, and we're going to be using some pure vanilla extract. Now, if for whatever reason you want your frosting to be completely white, just use clear vanilla extract. They sell that at craft stores or in the baking aisle of some stores, some big department stores. But for me, the fact that the pure vanilla extract adds a little bit of color to that frosting does not bother me one bit. Okay, I prefer the pure taste of vanilla, so I'm going to use that in this recipe. So I just creamed that butter and cream cheese and made it look nice and fluffy. What I'm doing now is adding that powdered sugar to the mix. Now, try and sift your powdered sugar. That way you don't end up with lumps in your icing. Or you can buy already sifted powdered sugar at the store, which is what I'm using here. Now, what I do is, once I put that powdered sugar into the butter and cream cheese mixture, I like to use my spatula to combine it first before I use my electric mixer, because that way I don't end up with a big smoke of a cloud of powdered sugar in the air. Or, if you like, you can use just a wooden spoon to completely mix this. Remember, there's no danger of overmixing because this is not cake batter, it's just frosting. So you can use your wooden spoon to do this all the way until it's nice and creamy. But just to fasten things up, I'm using my electric mixer. Okay, and I'm going to cream that until it's nice and smooth and creamy. All right, and then once this is well combined, I'm going to add that vanilla extract. But make sure you scrape the sides of your bowl to incorporate any dry powdered sugar into that frosting, just like I'm doing here. Okay. And then we want to add our vanilla extract. I'm using pure vanilla extract in this frosting. Now, I love the taste of vanilla, so I'm going to put a good 2 teaspoonfuls in there. If you want your icing a little lighter in color, you can add just 1 teaspoonful. And then you want to give it a nice mix again to make sure it's all incorporated into that frosting. Okay, and this is what it needs to look like. Look at that. It's nice and creamy, very soft, and it smells like heaven. It smells so good. All right. So we're going to set that aside and we're going to start putting a topping. This is what I put up over the cake. And I do this just so you know you're eating a carrot cake because you will see carrot, okay? You can leave this step out altogether if you don't want to go through all this. The cake will still be delicious, but this just adds another extra touch to the cake. So in that saute pan, I had some butter, and I added our grated carrots into there. Now, the objective is not to cook the carrots, just to sweat them a little bit and caramelize them, okay? That's releasing that moisture from the carrots and caramelizing it. Now, to the butter and the grated carrots, I added our brown sugar, and I'm giving it a good mix. Now, this will help it'll help the carrots caramelize slightly, okay? I want to give it a good mix, and I'm just crushing those little bits of brown sugar that are held together. Okay, give it a good mix. And then after this, you can stop right here if you don't want to use any rum or rum extract, but I added in our rum extract into that mix. If you're using pure rum, give it a little bit of time to simmer, like let it simmer on medium heat for that alcohol to evaporate. It'll leave the flavor, but the alcohol will evaporate. So once that's nicely combined, I'm going to set it on the side, let it completely cool. Do not put this hot over your icing. It'll melt your icing. Okay, remember there's butter and cream cheese in there. If you put this straight off the eye of the stove onto your icing, it'll melt. So over there, I have my cake on a pedestal, and I'm going to start frosting it, okay? Now that's what that carrot topping looks like, but we're going to start frosting our cake. So what I'll do is just put dollops of that cream cheese frosting up over the cake, all around the cake, and then we're going to spread it around the cake. Now, this cake is sweet enough. It has its own sweetness. If you do not want to use this frosting on top, trust me, it'll still be delicious, okay? But for me, like I mentioned before, carrot cake is just not carrot cake without that cream cheese frosting up over it. So I'm going to ice my cake. Okay, and if you like, instead of the carrots, you can garnish it with some nuts. I've seen people use pecan nuts up over the carrot cakes, but I'm going to sprinkle mine with carrots. Okay, so you want to be very careful when you're icing your cake, especially in that center part. If you use a bundt cake like I did, in that center part, it tends to crumb up pretty easily. So be careful not to put crumbs on your icing when you're icing that middle part, okay? So you want to go a little bit heavy on the icing as you ice the center part of the cake if you used this kind of pan to bake your cake in. If you didn't, you don't need to worry about it at all, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm just coaxing that frosting into our cake, like on the sides of the cake and into the center part of our cake. And I'll keep doing this until it looks the way I want it to look. Now, there's no particular like rule of how to ice this kind of cake. It's whatever floats your boat. Whatever works for you, that's what you do. Okay? And I'm just swirling. I'm just using my offset spatula to swirl it around the cake. I want those nice wispy looking patterns on the cake. That's why I'm doing it this way. Now you can spread it all the way to the bottom, or you can leave it like that and just garnish it, a little bit neater, and garnish it with the carrots. Or you can leave this out altogether. It all depends on whatever you want to do. That does not take away from the cake whatsoever. Okay, see that center part? That's what I'm worried about. And I'm just being really gentle as I coax that icing into the center of the cake. All right, now this cake is so delicious, it never lasts in my house, never more than 2 days. But I like to share that way I do not overeat. All right, and you just turn it around to make it easier for you. Right, now our cake has been frosted and topped with that carrot garnish, and this is what it looks like. You see those wisps I was talking about? I kind of like that rustic look, so that's what I went with. And I am going to show you up close and personal what it looks like. So feast thine eyes. Look at that. That's a thing of beauty. Smells great, tastes great, and most of all, the best part of it, it's very, very simple to make. Now you can see the carrots come through the batter. You can also see chunks of apples in there and raisins. Now look at how soft that crumb is. It cuts up really, really easily. Look at that. Take a look and say, ah. Well, thank you so much for joining me this time. Join me next time as I take your taste buds on another culinary safari. Thank you, and karibu to Stella's Meza.
Yeah, 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 yeah.